Janos Marton, Chief Advocacy Officer at Dream.org. I think to answer what the most pressing issue facing the criminal justice today is, you have to look back at the last decade of how we got here. From 2015 to 2020, there were a lot of really incredible criminal justice reforms happening at the state, local, and federal level in all different areas in a bipartisan way. Then there was a backlash, and we've come out of the backlash the last few years, and the messaging around criminal justice reform that has worked the last few years has really emphasized that there are better ways to do public safety. And I think that's the right political message. But what it sometimes leaves out is how horrific our jail and prison systems are uh, and how difficult the criminal justice system's impact is on families and communities. So when I think about what's most important to the system right now, it's we have to figure out a way to bring that messaging back into the conversation. Um, Even though it might not be as politically powerful as some of the public safety messaging that has worked in recent years. The first time I ever worked full time on criminal justice reform as an advocate was the Close Rikers campaign. And that was a campaign that was, at the beginning, really underestimated. People didn't think that it was a very realistic idea. And I remember about 8 to 10 months into the campaign, we decided to have a really big rally at the foot of the Rikers Island Bridge with a big march through industrial Queens beforehand, and we invited a lot of press and politicians. But even a few days beforehand, we weren't really sure how many people were going to show up, because typically for those kinds of protests, it had been around 100 people or so. But well over 1,000 people showed up that day to march through Queens. I remember buses pulling in that different organizations had sponsored, and we got 35 different media outlets to cover it. And it was really a turning point in the Close Rikers campaign because it went from being a sort of a radical idea to one that people started, interrogating on policy grounds, like how would this work? And really from there, the momentum only continued. And so I'll always remember that day because it was a hot day of marching through industrial Queens with politicians on one side and activist organizers on the other, and it was a great memory, and it also did a lot to move the campaign forward. Well, with social media, it's hard to know what's surprising. If you follow me, you'll know that I'm very into the Knicks, who just won the championship. I have a creative wardrobe, and I love traveling, especially road tripping around the country. But I guess people might not know that I do love to write. I just don't really have any time for it anymore. And I always dream about, if I ever get to retire from doing this work, that I would spend a lot of time writing. I'm really proud of being part of a movement to center directly impacted leadership in the criminal justice reform movement. The first organization that I worked for on criminal justice reform, Just Leadership USA, was founded by a formerly incarcerated leader, Glenn Martin, and that organization was obviously very focused on elevating the role of people with lived experience in campaigns and policy discussions. I then went to the ACLU, where the Smart Justice campaign was just taking off, and it was one of our main goals to emphasize that affiliates all around the United States should hire formerly incarcerated people to be organizers and campaign directors. And then here at Dream.org, we built a team where the entire Justice Department is all people who are formerly incarcerated advocates. And so I think in the long run, it's going to be those leaders that take us to where we need to go, and we always need to be training more of them. And I'm just really proud to have been a part of the field's evolution, how we think about that leadership.